Android sideloading and the new developer verification process. User choice or added friction. Google has allowed Android users to install applications outside of the Google Play Store without many restrictions for many years, until now. Installing applications outside of the Google Play Store is known as sideloading. Sideloading Android apps involves downloading an APK file from a developer's website, an alternative app store, or another source and installing it without going through the Google Play Store. SendSweep distributes its app APK directly from its own website. This is not an abstract issue for SendSweep. Recent changes to sideloading can directly affect how people find, install, and trust independent Android apps. Google is now introducing a developer verification system for certified Android devices. Certified Android devices means devices that are Play Protect certified by Google. These devices have passed Android compatibility testing, meet Android's compatibility definition document requirements, and are eligible to include licensed Google software such as Google Play Store and Google Play services. Google says its developer verification rules will apply to certified devices running Android 7 or later, with the verification updates delivered through Google Play services. This generally includes mainstream Android phones sold with the Google Play Store, devices running uncertified builds, certain custom ROMs, or AOSP without licensed Google services may not be covered in the same way. AOSP stands for Android Open Source Project. Google says having a developer verification system will make it harder for scammers and repeat malware developers to hide or remain anonymous. Critics say it gives Google more control over apps that are not distributed through Google Play. Some critics go even further to say that Google is implementing this developer verification system for anti-competitive reasons. So is Google ending sideloading? No, not immediately. But Google is creating different installation procedures, and some of those paths are much easier than others. Let's start with how sideloading works today. How sideloading works today. Right now, Android generally gives installation permission to the app that opened or downloaded the APK. For example, suppose you download an APK file with Chrome. Android might stop you and ask whether Chrome should be allowed to install unknown apps. After you approve Chrome to install unknown apps, you return to the APK and continue through Android's normal package installer. Google Play Protect may also scan apps installed from outside of Google Play. It may warn you about an app, block it, disable it, or remove it if Google identifies it as potentially harmful or malicious. Google has also started blocking some unverified apps when they request sensitive permissions that are commonly abused in financial scams. We will show you what those commonly exploited third-party Android permissions are. Sideloading is not already a completely unrestricted process. Android by default already has source permissions, installation warnings, package checks, and Play Protect. The new system adds another layer. Google now wants the developer behind the app to be registered and verified by them. What developer verification actually means. Google announced Android developer verification on August 25th, 2025. The basic idea is that an app's package name and signing identity will be connected to a verified person or organization. Google says this is an identity check. It is not supposed to be a review or an approval of what the app does. Developers who distribute outside of Google Play can register through the Android Developer Console. A full distribution account currently costs $25 US. Individual developers must provide identity and address documentation. Organizations must provide additional information, including a DUNS number and a website verified through the Google Search Console. The developer must also register the app's package name and prove control of its signing identity. This is where we need to correct one common misunderstanding. The developer does not upload the private signing key itself to the Android Developer Console. Instead, the developer enters the SHA-256 fingerprint from the app's signing certificate. This is a long hexadecimal string that is usually displayed as pairs of numbers and letters separated by colons. For an existing package name, the developer signs an APK locally and uploads that signed APK as proof of ownership. The private key stays on the developer's computer or inside the developer's secured key store file. Google can inspect the APK's cryptographic signature and confirm that the developer controls the matching private key without receiving the private key itself. There is a separate system called Google Play App Signing. Under that program, Google may generate and manage an app signing key. A developer moving an existing app into that program may also transfer an encrypted copy of a signing key with Google's PEPK tool. PEPK stands for Play Encrypt Private Key. It is Google's tool for securely encrypting an existing Android app signing private key before transferring it to Google Play App Signing. It does not create the key. It 1. Reads the private key from your key store file. 2. Encrypts it using Google's public encryption key. 3. Produces an encrypted output file that can be uploaded to Google Play. But that is a separate Google Play signing arrangement. It is not the normal, common Android Developer Console validation process for an independently distributed APK. See Google's user choice in Sideloading Android apps image. Once a developer and app are fully registered and verified, Google says the installation experience should remain mostly the same as it is today, even when the app is downloaded from the developer's own website or another app store, etc. What Google's diagram is really showing. The image you are looking at now comes directly from Google, and it gives us a useful summary of the company's future plans for sideloading. Google is showing 3 different sideloading paths. On the left, you have apps from fully verified developers. Google says users can download those apps directly from a company website or another channel, and the installation experience should not meaningfully change. In the middle, you have developers using limited distribution accounts. These accounts are meant for students, hobbyists, learners, and personal projects. A developer can distribute to as many as 20 authorized devices without completing the full identity verification process or paying the full distribution registration fee. On the right, you have completely unverified developers. Those apps can still be installed, but the user must go through what Google calls the advanced flow. The most important thing this image confirms is that Google is not describing this as a complete ban on unverified apps. But the three side-loading paths shown are not equally convenient. A verified developer gets the normal path. A limited distribution account can register apps and share them with up to 20 devices that end users have explicitly authorized. And a completely unverified developer can still distribute an app, but a heavy side-loading burden shifts to the user. And Google's wording in this graphic is still Google's own framing. When Google says nothing changes, that describes its intended experience for verified developers. When Google says the advanced flow gives users critical time and space, that describes Google's security justification. Neither phrase answers the larger question. Will ordinary users actually complete all of those extra steps? How the advanced flow works. Google announced the advanced flow on March 19, 2026. It is scheduled to launch globally in August 2026. This is meant to preserve sideloading for users who knowingly want to install apps from developers who have not registered with Google. Here is how Google says the advanced flow will work. First, the user enables developer options in Android's system settings. On most Android phones, this is done by opening the phone software information screen and tapping the build number 7 times. Then, Android asks the user to confirm that nobody is coaching or pressuring them to weaken the phone's security. The phone must restart, and the user must authenticate again. Google says that restart is intentional. If a scammer is keeping the victim on a phone call or controlling the device remotely, restarting the phone can break that live connection. After the restart, the user must wait 1 day, a whole 24-hour period. Once the waiting period is over, the user returns to the settings and confirms the decision with a fingerprint, face unlock, or a device PIN. The user can then allow installations from unverified developers for 7 days or indefinitely. Android will still warn the user that the developer is unverified, but the user can choose install anyway. There is one very important detail here. The 1 day delay is not supposed to happen before every individual APK app installation. Google describes this as a one-time advanced flow setup. After the user completes it, the user can choose a 7-day authorization period or leave the option enabled indefinitely. Google also says ADB installation will continue to work without developer registration. ADB stands for Android Debug Bridge. It is a command line tool that lets a computer communicate with an Android device. Developers commonly use this tool to install APK files, view system logs, run shell commands, copy files, debug applications, restart the device, or access recovery-related functions. So technically, unverified apps are not being made impossible to install by Google. But for a normal user who is not using ADB, this process becomes much harder. Why Google says this is necessary? Google says the system is designed to fight coercion scams. A scammer might call someone and create a fake emergency involving a bank account, unpaid debt, law enforcement, a government agency, or a family member. Then the scammer might pressure the victim to install their app APK immediately. Sometimes the scammer stays on the phone. Sometimes the scammer uses remote access software and walks the victim through every warning on the screen. Once installed, a malicious app may steal login information, capture credentials, abuse accessibility services, intercept communications, or help the scammer commit financial fraud. Google's argument is that a restart and a one-day waiting period can break the sense of panic. The restart can disconnect the victim from the scammer. The waiting period gives the victim time to stop, think, and possibly talk to someone they trust. Developer verification serves a related purpose. Google says verified identities make it harder for a malicious developer to disappear and immediately return under a new anonymous account. That is the strongest argument in favor of this new system that Google has planned for everyone. Why independent developers still object? The criticism is not simply that sideloading becomes impossible. Google has confirmed that ADB and the advanced flow will remain available. The main concern is that a developer who wants users to have a normal installation experience must register with Google, even if that developer does not want to use Google Play. That expands Google's role beyond its own app store. A developer who does not want full verification can use a limited distribution account, but that option is capped at 20 authorized devices and is meant for small, personal, or educational projects. A developer who remains completely unverified must depend on users completing the advanced flow process or installing the app through ADB. And that's where the friction matters. A technically experienced Android user may have no problem at enabling developer mode, restarting the phone, waiting a day, returning to the settings, authenticating again, and confirming another warning. But the average user will most likely stop much earlier or fail to finish the advanced flow process. That does not mean Google has technically banned this developer's app, but it does mean that the sideloading process got a hell of a lot harder, and app distribution or reach just decreased for this developer and his or her app tenfold. We should be precise here. That is a logical prediction about user behavior. Google has no published data showing how many estimated users will complete the advanced flow or how many will abandon it at the time of recording this video. Now let's go through the rollout timeline. Google has announced developer verification on August 25th, 2025. Google announced the start of limited early access to developer verification in November 2025. In March 2026, verification opened more broadly and Google announced the advanced flow. In June 2026, Google began rolling out a system service called Android Developer Verifier to most Android devices. That service has the package name com.google.android.verifier. Google says it will eventually check whether or not an application is registered to a verified developer. These system updates are delivered through Google Play services and will apply to certified Android devices. In July 2026, Google plans to launch the Android Developer ID Status API and to provide early access to the Android Developer Console API and limited distribution accounts. In August 2026, Google plans to launch the Advanced Flow, limited distribution accounts, and the Android Developer Console API globally. Then, the first wave of developer verification enforcement begins on September 30th, 2026, not September 1st, 2026, and not worldwide yet. The first countries to see developer verification enforcement on September 30th, 2026 are Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. Even in those four countries, the first phase is narrower than many headlines suggest. Google says that the September 30th requirement initially applies to installations coming from the following 7 participating app stores: Google Play, Honor App Market, Oppo App Market, Samsung Galaxy Store, Transsion Palm Store, Vivo V App Store, and Xiaomi Get Apps. Google's official FAQ says stores that are not on that list are not included in the initial enforcement phase. That means an APK file downloaded directly from a developer's website, GitHub, F-Droid, or another unlisted source is not currently part of the September 30th enforcement phase, even inside those 4 countries. Unregistered apps downloaded through these participating stores can still be installed with ADB or through the advanced flow. Google says the developer verification system will eventually extend to all apps installed on certified Android devices, regardless of where those apps came from in the year 2027 and beyond. What this means right now. Right now, the traditional sideloading process is still generally available. The Android Developer Verifier service has already started rolling out. The advanced flow is scheduled to begin in August 2026, and the first enforcement phase begins on September 30th, 2026. For developers distributing APKs directly through their own websites, the September 30th phase does not currently cover those direct downloads. That matters for independent apps like SendSweep. Direct website distribution is not being shut down in September 2026. But it means we need to pay attention to the broader rollout planned for 2027 and beyond. All of the things that were just mentioned are subject to change. The Keep Android Open campaign. A campaign called Keep Android Open is organizing opposition to the new policy. Its change.org petition titled Keep Android Open, Stop Google from Limiting APK File Usage has more than 220,000 verified signatures as of July 2026. This campaign's broader concern is that Google is creating centralized control over apps distributed outside of Google Play. That is a legitimate issue to debate. However, the campaign website currently describes September 2026 as a worldwide lockdown affecting every app and every device. That is not what Google's updated rollout plan says. The September 30th phase initially covers 7 app stores in 4 countries. The broader expansion is planned for 2027 and beyond. So the campaign may be raising an important long-term concern, but its countdown language should not be treated as a precise description of what will happen everywhere on September 30th, 2026. Conclusion. Here is the clearest way to understand all of this. Android sideloading is not ending in 2026. Verified developers will still be able to distribute apps through Google Play, other app stores, or their own websites with a mostly normal installation experience. Unverified developer apps will still be installable through ADB or the advanced flow. Google is creating a tiered app sideloading installation experience. Developers who register with Google get the easier path. Developers who remain unverified can still distribute their apps, but their users must accept more warnings and complete a much more demanding setup and installation process. Google says that friction protects people from coercion scams and makes repeat malware campaigns harder to operate. Critics say that it expands Google's control beyond Google Play Store and may discourage ordinary users from installing independent software. This new sideloading system may create a real barrier against scams while also making independent app distribution very difficult. All of those things can be true. But the most important factual points are these. On September 30th, Google is not blocking every unregistered APK sideload worldwide. The first phase of developer verification enforcement is limited to 7 participating app stores in Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand only. The 7 participating app stores are again as follows: Google Play, Honor App Market, Oppo App Market, Samsung Galaxy Store, Transion Palm Store, Vivo V App Store, and Xiaomi Get Apps. The larger global rollout is planned for 2027 and beyond. Android sideloading is not closing overnight, but the definition of an open Android platform is certainly changing. If you like this content, Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. As always, thank you for watching, and see you again on the next round.